人教団との戦
A huge crowd of the Walking Dead is chasing three men. They growl, overwhelm each other, reach out to the still alive with their cold and chilled, almost rotten, fingers. They don't care if they bring down their fellows, because for them only one thing is important: people with warm brains. One of the survivors of fear only manages to turn his head in order to look his fear in the eyes, while the two continue to try to escape, since the space between the houses is terribly narrow, and the bloodied zombies are only getting bigger. The guy screams loudly when his gaze bumps into such a huge crowd, which makes the businessman, whose head is covered with some kind of rag, even distracted, while the cook, judging by the clothes, is clearly in no hurry to stop. A loud mat comes out of a man's mouth before he accelerates sharply when a rotten and vile hand, which was
Thank you,
missing several
Drago.
fingers, reaches for his leather jacket, wanting to either rip it off or pull the lively one in his direction. But then the guy abruptly turns sideways, instantly hitting the zombie on the arm, pushing that away from him with a loud clap, while the crowd from behind did not decrease for a second, but only increased. The dead man, it seems, only gets into a great rage from this, immediately opening his mouth, in which a couple of dozen sharp and uneven fangs were visible, and then he growled loudly, rushing with renewed vigor towards the living. A person, being struck by such an action, only sweats more cold, while his eyes are still looking at the pursuer with the same horror. A groan of displeasure escapes from him, and then a desperate cry. Why the hell is this game so realistic? But immediately a man in a chef's jacket grabs him by the fabric of his t-shirt, pulling at himself and shouting that he should stop fighting and just start running, which made the guy even a little shocked. But he did not argue. After a certain amount of time, the whole trio struggles to run to some musty and abandoned garage. It seems that the zombies have gradually begun to lag behind them. The door inside opens with a loud bang thanks to a kick from the cook. People literally falling, immediately closing the door back and leaning on it with their whole body, which, God forbid, no dead man decided to come to them. But they don't see that there is someone's body behind the dusty mountain of boxes. After such a run, they all exhale together, immediately starting to gasp for air as soon as they are in a more or less safe place, while the businessman is still pressing against the door, ready to fall at any moment. The guy, still breathing heavily and drenched in seventh sweat, opens some kind of blue window, similar to a map, before shushing his fellow sufferers and informs them that there are no zombies here, and it's not worth luring them anyway. Indeed, on this map, his position is marked with a white arrow and zombies, with red dots that have spread throughout the nearest territory, while the three of them, frankly speaking, are staring at the blue game window. The body that previously lay completely motionless suddenly twitches its fingers, as if coming to its senses. A circle is spinning over the bloody guy, while the system reports that the information download is complete. The whole body immediately begins to tremble, as if in convulsions, and a strangled wheeze escapes from the mouth. The group of survivors reacts to this literally instantly, immediately jumping up and turning around in fear, screaming and not understanding what kind of sound it was. And the dead body immediately rises, on wobbly legs and with a crooked gait walking in their direction. From the mouth of a dead man, some incomprehensible and inarticulate set of symbols and words are constantly coming from. The cook notices with horror that they literally just said that there are no zombies here. What a rotten system. The unknown dead man is getting closer to them, opening his mouth, flashing bright scarlet eyes in their direction. The guy in the leather jacket immediately notices with displeasure that they immediately encountered a bug at launch. What a lame game. The purple-haired zombie continues to shine with his red, as if mechanical, eyes, again making some sounds, apparently trying to talk to them, but all to no avail. Frozen in fear, people just keep looking at him, and a blue status window pops up in front of him. Lin Yang, whose race was just an ordinary zombie, and all the other characteristics, in terms of health, hunger, and strength, left much to be desired. With a numb look, he looks at all this. Did he get into the game world? Immediately comes an unexpected notification for the player. Please take into account that you are going through the main mission. You cannot leave the game until the mission is completed. What the hell? Can't Lin get out of the game for a shift? And what kind of mission is this anyway? but immediately from the subsequent thoughts are distracted by instantly approaching steps, from which it immediately becomes uncomfortable. The guy only
Patching
raises
you
his
up.
I'm gonna
gaze in
push up.
confusion before he encounters
What do you
screaming
need?
people who are not just walking towards him, but
I'm
literally
gonna
running,
push up.
Patching you up.
waving everything they have,
4
who is a
medkits,
guitar,
please.
and who is a
Alright.
cast
Or
iron
medkit on your
helmet.
way.
Jan only has time to think that he doesn't understand what they are
Here we
doing
go.
at all before he gets
Patch
everything
him
he
up,
can from.
please.
The businessman swings a
I'm gonna
knife,
push up,
kitchen
sir.
utensils, and
Patching
even flies on the
Thank.
head, and a musical instrument now, and then tries to hit in the ribs. He immediately
Diego,
begins to
I'm
cover
too fast
himself
than
with
you.
his hands, shouting that,
Yeah.
why are they attacking him? It's better
Yeah.
to sit down and discuss
Sorry for that,
everything.
but
But all
I'll
that
deal
comes
with
out
it.
true.
of him is indistinct, pitiful wheezing, while they continue beating, and the man in the leather jacket orders him to shut up altogether. And then Jan is distracted from the subsequent attacks as soon as something rings, and a blue window appears again in front of his eyes. It says that the final mission is to find out the truth about the outbreak of the virus and stop it. The guy immediately grabs his hair. How long will the main mission last? Customer service. He's
Patching
not
you up.
playing anymore, let him in. Why did he have to be trapped at the very beginning of the game? But then the guitarist stops as soon as he notices this gesture, urging everyone to wait. Do zombies know no one that you need to protect your head? Lynn, with a happy smile and tears in his eyes, reaches out to them, already thinking with might and main that the self-proclaimed brothers have finally realized that he is not such a dead man at all like the others, but only in the eyes of living people. He looks like a complete monster, which yells at the whole garage. What a disgusting face. The businessman, squeezing his knife harder, says that if he understands everything correctly, then this zombie can be an elite monster, and their system simply has not been updated, therefore it has not registered it. And then, with a sharp movement, he pierces someone else's throat, cutting the carotid artery, which immediately begins to gush blood, and Jan himself only wheezes in surprise.
Patch
The
me up
guy
at
in the
6
leather
medkits,
jacket
please. Patch me up 6
immediately notes that
medkits.
there are a lot of
6
valuables
medkits.
in elite
Fast, fast,
monsters.
fast,
How
fast.
many
Now
medkits, so?
kill zombies and get
6 medkits, you metal, medical student.
6
Come on, man.
medkits on
There
your
we
way.
go.
begin again, and with renewed vigor, while Lynn is covering himself with his hands. No, he's just an ordinary zombie. In his thoughts, he has to literally beg them to stop, because it hurts. That's only then the realization comes to mind abruptly. It doesn't hurt. The dead man feels no pain at all. Does this mean that others like him have no feelings? Immediately, a blue status window pops up in front of your face. There it is reported that the feeling of pain is dulled, and the sensations from bodily injuries are weakened. He will only die if he severely injures his head. No wonder then that their attacks were ineffective. He has 2 more skills of this type. It turns out that zombies also have their advantages, and immediately someone else's knife blade digs into his leg, distracting the guy from the subsequent reading. Jan immediately frowns and clenches his teeth. If he doesn't fight back now, then these survivors will definitely cross all boundaries. The loud growl immediately bursts out of his throat, causing the attackers to instantly jump back and run to the door. The guitarist shouts that it was so loud that the zombies outside will definitely hear it, and the businessman echoes all of them to run. Otherwise they will not be able to. Immediately, Jan smiles with all sincerity and asks them not to leave, because you can talk. But from the outside he looks like an ordinary, grunting zombie, who also reaches out to them with his hand, but the door immediately slams shut, and the trail of the trio of survivors disappears just as quickly. And it would seem that this is even better, only at the same moment a red window pops up in front of the dead man's face. This is a warning that says that the player must take into account that his hunger level has reached 50%. When the level is below 25%, he will lose consciousness until he catches enough prey to satisfy his hunger and raise the level to 40%, after which control of the body will return. The hero immediately panics, clutching his head. If he does not eat, he will lose consciousness. What kind of stupid setup is this? Why does he have to be a zombie at all? But immediately his mood improves when Lynn can see his characteristics again. He has as many as 10 power points, and in such games it is difficult for a simple player to earn even one. Even so, it would be better if he did not fall into the role of a zombie. When choosing the type of activity, there was no dead man, and that bastard just deceived him. Immediately, a memory comes to mind of how a whole crowd lined up behind red ribbons, in front of a building on which it was written Zombie World. And from the
Patching
side,
up.
I watched a perfectly healthy and normal
I'm
young,
gonna push me up.
who awkwardly confirms that there are somehow too many people
Hey,
here.
hey,
He is upset thinking that he can only watch others play, so it's better
Hey,
to
I'm gonna
hey,
push me
bro.
up.
but immediately a man in dark clothes runs into him, literally knocking the unfortunate guy off his feet, which is why he only has time to mumble an apology before he collides with someone else's gaze. The man under the hood looks not very and then the stranger literally shoves a box with a disc and a helmet into his hands, urging him to take it all. The dazed Lin can only look at the front side of the box. This, the zombie world. Wait a minute, and as soon as he raises his head, he notices that the strange man simply disappeared from the field of view as if he had evaporated. Already in his own house, he starts the game, which is why its name and the start button appear on the monitor, while he himself looks at the helmet with interest. Well, you can try it for free, right? That is why he immediately pulls on a headdress. That's just that he immediately begins to squeak disgustingly, signaling that an unknown virus has struck something. And for some reason the hero himself began to feel dizzy at that moment. And now, in reality, the dead man quietly sighs, reaching for the door. It's so stupid to play this game, but it's worth finding food first. That's just that one is immediately opened by zombies, whose mouths are all covered in blood, and the remains of
I'm gonna
someone's
fish
flesh
you
and
up.
clothes are
I'm
in
gonna
the
fish you up.
The purple-haired man immediately covers
Here we
his
go.
own lips with his palm, looking at this picture in shock. Did those guys get eaten? But the monsters are still not going to retreat from him, slowly advancing forward, while Lin himself is pressed into some kind of rack with his back, shouting for them to take a closer look, because he is exactly the same zombie, not a person. Unfortunately, the undead only growls and everything moves towards him, stretching out their rotten and decrepit hands, crowding into the room. Hell, when the door locks, he'll be just as dead as the three of them. Ian must fight. That's why he slams his fist into someone else's face with all his stupidity, causing the rot to fall to the floor before he looks up and realizes that he is finished. A whole line of inhumans lined up in front. Those with loud growls and grunts rush in his direction, opening their disgusting mouths. But it turns out that they do not want to attack the guy, but the zombie who fell, immediately leaning on him and starting to gnaw into pieces, why he was in mild shock at all. But apparently, the instincts of self-defense act
I'm
when
gonna fish you up, sir.
because he immediately runs out of
Thank
the
you.
open
Thank
you.
passage,
Go.
rushing to
No
run as
problem.
far as possible. Zombies are too realistic, disgusting. As he progresses, he manages to stumble upon a huge building with the sign How Ki Lai Supermarket, which makes him immediately rush inside. According to the rules, the dead will attack first. Over time, there will be fewer and fewer people, and the combat capability will only increase. When this happens, the zombies will starve, therefore they will attack representatives of their own species. After the whole snack, consisting of products that could be found inside the supermarket, he thinks that 10 points are required for development. He should improve the quality, but how to gain experience. New players of the human race can share information, and he, being a zombie, will have to find out everything himself. If he doesn't complete the mission, he won't be able to exit the game. What a nightmarish beginning. But immediately the rumbling of the stomach breaks out of my thoughts, and someone's voice mutters, "Hungry. Meat. Still hungry." Immediately another warning pops up that he should pay attention to the fact that his hunger level is now 30%. When the level drops to 25%, he will lose consciousness until he catches enough prey to satisfy his hunger. The level will decrease until the hero consumes food or dies. Immediately, the guy grabs his head in panic, drooling. What's happening? He ate so much and no effect. What if? The system interrupts all subsequent thoughts, informing him that he can only eat meat to satisfy his hunger. And where can I find him? I ask. But Jan abruptly throws a glance to the side when an unknown voice whispers there. Vision through the walls allows you to distinguish the silhouettes of wandering zombies, while the animal alter ego repeats everything. Over there, meat. Eat it. Clutching his head, he literally forces himself to turn away from this sight. Annoy. Why is the game so strange? Too realistic. We need to find some loner, otherwise it will be too dangerous. But then the voice rumbles louder and louder, screaming meat. Damn, he seems to be going completely crazy. Coming out from behind some shelving, still holding his head, he stumbles upon a completely single hunched silhouette. Drooling more and more, he immediately realizes with an enthusiastic look that he needs to be taken. Lin instantly flies out of his small hiding place, rushing towards the barely walking undead, stretching out his palms. And then, as soon as he runs closer, he immediately grabs the man and bites that shoulder, tearing out part of the flesh with the fabric of the shirt, under someone else's wheezing and growling. But the zombie immediately turns to him, shooting at the player with his scarlet eyes, still making incomprehensible sounds, before grabbing his elbow and biting part of the flesh of his forearm. Damn it, he bites. The purple-haired one immediately orders him to stop, swinging his fist for a blow, which soon falls on the very skull of the monster. But all the phalanges and other bones seem to just crack and crumble inside from just one collision. With a loud roar, the undead only finally tears off the flesh, and the hero himself manages to jump back at this moment, clamping the wound and thinking that this is all very strange, since the indicators of this bastard, much higher than his own. Indeed, the blue window above the enemy shows that he has 15 points of strength and only 1 level of dexterity. Then it's not surprising that he didn't care about Ian's attempts to kill a stranger. Well, since he is not able to deal with him,
Hangi
then he must
yapacaksın?
run. Why does he immediately rush forward, running away?
Tamam kanka,
But at
ilk
some
sen
point turns to
vereceksin
look
diye, yavaş.
back and freezes for a moment. So, as expected, with level 1 agility, running is much slower than he thought. Indeed, the recent opponent is barely dragging himself in his direction, which makes a grin appear on his face. Lin turns to him completely, continuing to clamp the wound and smile. Let this dead man not blame him for being so slow, because he just wants meat. And now the guy will arrange a real feast for him. After some time in the kitchen utensils section,
Hangi
the
yapış yapsın?
purple-haired man is breathing
Thanks,
heavily,
bro.
wiping
You
sweat
want anything?
from his forehead. Everything was ready. Immediately, a familiar carcass looks out from behind the rack, while the player himself squeezes the knife harder. Just let him come. And as soon as the zombie comes closer at some point, at the same second a knife blade flies into his skull, which makes the dead man in the shirt just stand still incomprehensibly, and Jan himself begins to throw all sorts of
Hangi yapış
utensils,
yapsın?
pans, cleavers, pots, and much
Halk
more
yapısı.
are used, while the enemy catches most of his face and body, growling discontentedly. Before a minute later immediately
You want
goes into
anything?
a rage,
Can
starting
you
to
give me
shout
health
loudly to the
insurance?
Yeah, of course, sir. I will give a heal insurance. There you go.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Have a good day.